When she retired from the military, they celebrate Halloween. It's her favorite.
Hello, everyone. So we're gonna get started with the Great Stoneface Awards. This is very exciting, and I'm gonna hand this off to Sarah.
Hello, hello, hello. Great to see you all this afternoon. I'm sure that you've probably seen the screen, so you have seen this year's winner. This year's winner is Ghosts. And it actually, if you've all looked at your little vote tallies, you will see. It was, I've never actually, in all my years of counting up Great Stoneface votes, I've never seen a book win by the margin that this one did. Over twice as many votes as number 2. It just was a landslide, 1,304 votes. One thing that I found very exciting was that our votes this year came in from a total of 133 different schools and public libraries combined. That's the highest, by far, the highest number that we've had for voting. So that made me very happy. So I think that, this is available for all of you to take home and talk to with your kids about who won and which place their favorites came in on. Before we get started with the book talks, just a quick little shout out about the committee. I did just want to note that our longtime co-chair and member Lucy Albertson retired this year. So she actually had stepped down from the committee for this past year, but I just wanted to offer public appreciation for all the years that she did put in on the committee. We then elected another co-chair to serve with me, Lorene Keating, who, due to serious health issues, had to step down from the committee. She also has been serving on the committee, such a strong voice for so many years. And so it's been kind of a rough transitional year. Lisa Hood, thank goodness, stepped in to become my co-chair. So, yay Lisa, thank you very much. So let me just toss out there that any of you that are thinking that they might like to have a voice on pulling together the Great Stoneface list, we would love to get some new members on our committee. It is, I will say right out, it is a huge commitment of time and energy, but it is also a lot of fun. We're a great group, we're fun. Anyway, one last thing before we kick off. Ghosts. Third graphic novel in a row to win the Great Stoneface. We certainly have had many comments come in along with the voting this year, and I do have a kind of a beginning response to that, although it's something we'll be talking about over the next year. I would go into it, but we're kind of running really late, and if you just check out the committee reports, my whole little report kind of takes up on a couple of issues that came before the Great Stoneface Committee this year, and you'll find it all there online under the reports. I hope that says enough there, because I think really what you guys are here for is the book talks for next year's list, and for that, number 1, Susan. Susan is going to come up.
Oh, you totally did.
Okay, they won't.
So you can hold it in your hand if you'd like, or make it so they can hear you.
Make it so. Can you hear me?
Yes. Down a little bit.
A little bit. Let me just have it. All right. Okay, to start this out, of course. Thank you so much for electing me first.
No problem.
I do have a graphic novel to talk about. And it's called Five Worlds. And the first one takes us to the Sand Warrior. Five worlds are on a planet where there are different groups of people living in different cities. In the Sand City, there are difficulties with everyone getting enough getting enough to eat. There's not enough water. Other cities are having difficulties. They're having difficulty with too much heat, water evaporating, not enough to eat. And the Sand Warriors have come up with the idea that, according to prophecy, our lanterns, beacons, should be lit. They haven't been lit for hundreds of years. Maybe if we light these, we will stand a chance to have a better climate. Of course, not everybody agrees with that. There's a lot of fussing and fighting. And in the midst of all that chaos, one group decides to invade another. And in the chaos, we have a group of young people who decide, well, if they're not going to do it, we're going to do it. We're going to try to light that beacon. Now, this is a group of young people, quite a bizarre group. There is a sand warrior who cannot control that sand. There is a boy from the slums who has a very peculiar disease. And there's another boy who, well, he's a pro athlete, but he's not really a boy. And on it goes. This is really an in-depth idea of what's happening in this world. It does start and end very well. Whether or not you want to continue with the other volumes is up to you, but it is a great standalone. It really is good. One of my favorites, The Adventurers Guild, is dangerous. Long ago, the world has already fallen to monsters. And the only people that survive are in city-states, so to speak, hidden behind thick walls, because the stuff on the outside is pretty nasty. And there are different guilds. There might be a healing guild, a mage's guild, a merchant's guild, a blacksmith guild. Whatever you might be interested in, you might be interested in joining these guilds. And they have a culling day in which people of a certain age are selected into these guilds. It starts out with two boys, Brock and Zed, hoping to get into the guilds that they have chosen. And they have. But what most culling apprentices don't realize is at the end of this process, the Adventurers Guild gets to step up and take whoever they want from other guilds. And the reason they do that is because nobody wants to join their guild. It's too dangerous. And Brock and Zed are taken by the Adventurers Guild. Adventurers Guild, it sounds exciting, doesn't it? But it's not. They're really a military police force. And they go outside the walls and they have to fight those nasty things. And they are quite nasty. But boy, was this good. I loved it. The second one's coming, I can't wait. The Losers Club. This was so good. This is about Alex, who he reads so much. Oh, I hate to say this because we're all librarians, but he reads too much. He doesn't have any friends. He doesn't do any sports. He doesn't go to anything after school. He doesn't do anything except read. To the point that he's reading in his classes, you know the old thing, the funny book behind the book in your class. That's what he does. So the principal this year has really laid the law down that he has to bring up his grades, and he has to pay attention, and he has to do something besides read. So after school, if you stay in the aftercare program, you have to belong to a club. And Alex has looked at all the clubs and he doesn't like any of them. So he decides he'll think up his own. And it's going to be a reading club. And he's going to call it the Losers Club, because who in the world is going to join a club called the Losers Club? No one. And that's great, because then no one will join. I can sit there and read all I want. It's a perfect plan. Except it doesn't go that way, of course. Alex is too busy planning his group, getting enough tables and chairs, settling arguments, getting some people to stop talking long enough to read, and on it goes. But you know what? Maybe having a few friends isn't bad. And I don't have to read every minute. I can, read some. This is really good. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. How many of you have ever been sidetracked in your life? Sometimes that happens to all of us. It especially happens to 7th grader Joseph. He gets sidetracked. He suffers from ADD and an amazing amount of phobias. Navigating school is one, and sports is another. Imagine being out on a soccer field, and there's this little squirrel on the sideline, and you're watching it. It's eating a little brown nut, and it's staring at you. But it's actually staring at what's happening behind you. Suddenly, the ground trembles, and you turn and see the entire 7th grade coming toward you. You're ready for that impact because it's being led by Charlie, the school bully. You close your eyes and you pray it's not too painful. Nothing happens. You look and there's Charlie flying through the air and landing like an explosion on the ground. He got hip checked by a girl and the ball was stolen away. Heather, the new girl in school, soon to become the salvation of this young boy. As navigation happens through school, you find a little place to belong. The track team. You can't run, you can't hide, but that's okay. You've got Heather by your side. Navigating the school bully, navigating sports. Finding out sometimes in life it's not about how fast you run, but the fact that you can run. The truth, as told by Mason Buttle. We all have versions of truth. Somewhere is the truth. Mason Buttle has told his truth. He's been through an amazing ordeal. He's kind of a loner, sweats profusely, is large for his age, and expresses his emotions as colors. But his best friend Benny understands all this. But Benny ends up dying. A freak accident falling out of a treehouse. Or was it an accident? Lieutenant Bard gets involved and questions everyone, including Mason. 2 years later, Mason's still reeling from the death of his friend. The neighborhood bullies pick on him, and he endures it. He finds a new friendship when Calvin moves into the neighborhood. He becomes inseparable from Mason, and they journey and have fun together until Calvin disappears. All eyes turn to Mason. How can one boy lose two friends? Suspicion arises again with Lieutenant Bard. As Mason tries to express himself and figure out where his friend is, does he unravel the truth about Benny's death as well? Find out. Falcon Wild. If something belongs to you, do you get to keep it? If you find something, does that really make it yours? If you set it free and it comes back, then do you get to keep it forever? 12-year-old Karma rescues a falcon, and she names it Stark. She trains this falcon. Her father runs a sanctuary. She enjoys hanging out with the birds. She's homeschooled, and they live in the wilds of Montana. Where else would you want to live with falcons? Unfortunately, the owner of the bird is located, and Karma's father says that the bird needs to go back. It's a 4-day trek to take this bird home, and Karma wants to make sure this owner really is deserving of having this bird back. So they load up the van. They do not move to Beverly Hills, but they head on a 4-hour trek with her younger brother in tow. They fill up at the gas station and pick up a hitchhiker, which might not be a very good idea. This hitchhiker is the same age as Karma, and it's not good karma. They take him down the road a little ways, and they part as the family is going to veer off down this country road that they believe is really going to take them somewhere, but it doesn't. 40 miles down the road, the tire blows out and the car skids off and ends up down the embankment. What are they to do? Dad is trapped. Karma must find help. The bird has escaped. It's 40 miles back one direction, but of course the highway's got to be right over that hill. So Karma continues to find help. It gets dark, it gets cold, and she falls into a crevice. The light is starting to fade, and she looks to her right, and there is Mr. Bones, the skeleton of someone else who had fallen in the crevice. Just as the light is going away, Stark arrives. But Stark can't pull her out of that crevice, but maybe that hitchhiker can. Or will he? Discover Falcon Wild.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So the first book on my list of 3 is The Heart and Mind of Frances Polly. Ever had one of those bad days where everything seems to be going wrong? Well, our 11-year-old Fig Rotten, this is what she prefers to be called, her name is Frances, has had more than a bad day. She's had a pretty bad long time. She's fighting with her perfect sister, struggles to find where she fits in at school, and she's feeling like the only place she really wants to be is in nature. In fact, she loves nature so much, she brings it right inside her bedroom. Sticks, rocks, everything she can find outside pepper her bedroom. Her mother has finally given up trying to clean it or have her clean it up and just lets it be. Frances also has to sleep with the window wide open at night, despite the freezing temperatures, because she has to be in nature at all times. So, her favorite thing to do after school is to hang out on the ledge on the rocks behind her house. There she sits and she's happy being herself in the natural world. She observes and studies the crows and kind of models that after her favorite hero of all time, anthropologist Margaret Mead. This is where Frances' spirit soars, just like the crows flying around her, and she's at peace there and knows who she is. At school, she also likes being the smartest one in the class, but she realizes the other kids think she's weird, so she keeps even more to herself. But is she being weird to keep them away? When a new kid comes to school and has all the answers, Frances feels even worse, as though she's lost her place as the smart kid. The only person that seems to get her is Alvin, the elderly man who drives her school bus. He's smart, he's funny, and Frances and Alvin form an unlikely friendship. Taking that bus each day gives her a sense of belonging, kind of like the peace she feels on the ledge behind her house. When a devastating tragedy strikes, will Frances finally find a way to fit in? Will she see that maybe, just maybe, the people she needs to lean on have been there all along? Frances' story helps readers see that being true to yourself, forgiving others, being compassionate to others, all need to find a balance. You will never forget the vibrant cast of characters in this book, schoolmates, friends, and family members, but you will definitely find a special place in your heart for Frances and for Alvin. Okay, fans of Hatchet or any survival stories, this one's really cool. This is The Trail. Buckle in for an Appalachian adventure that features 12-year-old Toby. Today he did something really, really bad, and now he knows he has to make up for it, so he decides the best way to do that is to complete the bucket list of fun summer stuff he and his best friend Lucas came up with. The thing left on that list is the 450-mile hike-through on the Appalachian Trail from his home in Vermont all the way to Mount Katahdin in Maine. And yes, he decides he does have to do it. Supplies packed, Toby steals away to the trail, and though he's hiked before, being on his own and facing the White Mountains may be more than he bargained for. In fact, it could be deadly. Starvation, lack of water, bugs, sunburn, extreme weather, wild animals, and hypothermia threaten more than once on this brutal journey. And rather than hiking solo, which he thought he'd do, he meets unlikely strangers along the way. Some of them help, some of them don't, but his most prized find is Moose, a mangy stray dog who becomes Toby's best friend and sometimes protector. In fact, Moose saves Toby from a mother bear because he got in between she and her cubs. So that's a good dog. Along the trail, Toby remembers the fun he and Lucas had checking off the things on that summer list, eating worms, building a treehouse, going fishing. And during his time alone, he kind of figures out the difference between being all alone and being lonely. If you're an extreme adventure kind of person, you'll love this story, and you'll also quickly find that the author did some serious research to fully understand life on the Appalachian Trail. She got it right. From the trail nicknames to the cabins and the trail people who staff them, it's all there. Will Toby make it all the way to Mount Katahdin? What will happen with his beloved friend Moose when the journey is over? Will he survive after losing all his gear? This exciting adventure story will keep you turning pages, but you may come to realize that it's about a whole lot more than just the journey. It's about having self-confidence and understanding friendship. Lace up your hiking boots and take that first step, but face the dangers at your peril when you read The Trail. This is a sharp contrast to a book like that. This is Jake the Fake Keeps It Real. This is a kid-tested and approved book that will get your sides aching with laughter. Jake has really done it this time. He completely faked his way into a fancy music and arts academy by playing one song on the piano. It's the only song he knows. He doesn't even know how to read music. This is it. And they buy it. The admissions staff is impressed. The problem is, that's all he can do. He has literally no other talents. So as he starts at school, where his sister is a star, he has to fake his way through every single day. He has no other alternative than to just kind of jump in and do the weirdest things he can think of. This is a school where kids are encouraged to use their imaginations and they run wild. So one kid creates a sculpture out of garbage, and another student chews a piece of gum for 6 hours and then writes a play about it. You can see what, it's a little alternative. So back to Jake. He's doing okay, getting by until the dreaded final assignment, the talent show. What in the world is he going to do? Everyone expects him to play something genius on the piano. Will he figure out a talent before he's found out and gets expelled from school? Join the ride to find out what Jake does when he's faced with a room full of people with high expectations. You'll love these quirky classmates, the hilarious jokes with a lovely sprinkling of potty humor. Pun is intended there. And you'll ultimately want to know whether Jake will find himself, fit in, and get through the talent show.
Okay, so next up is Macy McMillan and the Rainbow Goddess. Macy isn't having the best year. Her mother is getting married, her house has been put up for sale, and perhaps worst of all, she is in a fight with her best friend just when she needs her the most. The only person paying any attention to Macy these days is her elderly neighbor, Iris. The only problem with that? Macy is deaf, and Iris does not know sign language. Iris will be moving soon, too, so Macy has been volunteered by her mother to help Iris pack. So how is she supposed to communicate with this woman when she can't even speak to her? Things get creative, and soon a sweet friendship between the two neighbors forms as Macy learns about Iris's past. Read this novel in verse to find out just what makes Iris so interesting, to see if Macy and her best friend will reunite, and to see how Macy will adjust to life in her new house with a new family. It is a novel in verse, which makes it kind of, pretty appealing because there's a lot of white space on every page. But also, it's just a lovely story. I think you'll enjoy it and your kids will. The Real McCoys by Matthew Swanson. The name's Moxie McCoy. I am 10 years old. I am in 4th grade, and that is all you need to know about me. I like to be a little bit mysterious. Thank you very much. It helps me do what I do. And what exactly does Moxie do? Well, she's a 10-year-old problem solver who runs her own detective agency. The trouble is, her best friend and business partner has moved away, just when Moxie is faced with her most epic mystery yet. Someone has stolen the beloved great-horned owl, Eddie, which serves as the school's mascot. No, it's not an actual owl, just a stuffed animal, but he is adored just the same. Now Moxie is on a mission to find the thief, and maybe a new best friend in the process. Let the interrogations begin. You are sure to get hooked on this book from the very beginning, with something to look at and laugh at on every page. I've got a kid who's exactly like Moxie. Spirit hunters. I'm kind of a scary wimp, and this almost is a little too much for me. Spirit Hunters by Ellen O. Something is wrong with Harper's little brother. This normally cheerful, active little boy is becoming secretive and angry. He's spending way too much time in his room, alone. And wait, who is that he's talking to in there? Is it Billy again? This all started when they moved to Washington, D.C., to an old house that stood empty for over 20 years before her parents decided to buy it for its Gothic charm. Charm? It's not charming, it's creepy. And the creepiest thing of all is the imaginary friend that her brother has discovered, Billy. This friend seems to be turning Michael into someone that Harper doesn't recognize anymore. Unfortunately, Harper can't confide in her mother about this. Mom gets so weird and upset anytime someone mentions anything strange that she doesn't understand. She'd talk to her grandmother, but Grandma and Mom aren't speaking anymore. Meanwhile, things with Michael are getting worse and worse. Will Harper manage to find help in time to save her brother? If you don't like the thought of a room with walls that pulse with dark liquid, or a ghost that appears as a rotting corpse, then you might want to avoid this book. But if you love a really good scare, Spirit Hunters is just the book for you. Phew, now to a dog book. That's more my speed. Strongheart, Wonder Dog of the Silver Screen by Candace Fleming. On a farm in Germany, a carefree puppy named Etzel played in a sun-washed barnyard. He chased the chickens, he tipped over his water bowl, he gulped down the last of his kibble, licking the bowl to shiny emptiness. At last, tired and full, he flopped onto the squirming pile of puppies nestled in the curve of his mother's belly. He had just closed his eyes when, "Here's a big handsome one," a man's voice boomed. Rough hands tore Etzel away from his family and held him high. "Yeah, take him," rumbled a second voice, "and we will turn him into the fiercest guard dog on the Berlin police force." Etzel was shoved into a canvas bag. His mother barked, and in the bag's darkness, Etzel whined. In 3 years, all traces of that cuddly puppy will have disappeared, and Etzel will have become an angry, dangerous guard dog. But life has something more in store for Etzel, and when he meets a man named Larry Trimble, he finds a friend who has faith that deep inside, Etzel is full of heart. Will Larry be able to find that sweet puppy who still hides somewhere inside this vicious dog? Read Strongheart, based on the true story of a man and the dog that became the star of stage and movie Scream. And now Vanderbeekers. That's just fun to say. You want to try it? Vanderbeekers? It's fun. This is a great book. Imagine that you live with your family in a nice, comfortable home in a neighborhood in Harlem that you love, surrounded by neighbors who are like family. It's the only life you've ever known, and it's the only life you would ever want. Now, imagine that it's 5 days before Christmas, and your cranky landlord tells your family you all have to leave, and that you only have 11 days to find a new place to live. This is exactly what happens to the Vanderbeekers. But the 5 siblings in this family are not about to give up their beloved home without a fight. Their plan is to befriend the mysterious landlord, Mr. Biederman, and somehow convince him to let them stay. And that is when the antics and the mayhem ensue. Will their plan work? How do you make friends with someone who doesn't even want you around? Will they have to leave their cherished home and start a new life somewhere else? Read The Vanderbeekers, a really lovely, just warm family story.
Amina's voice. Amina's voice. There it is. Middle school is hard for everyone, but especially Amina. Her best friend, Soo Jin, is befriending a girl who used to bully them, and Amina feels left behind. On top of that, Soo Jin may not even be Soo Jin much longer. She's becoming a citizen now and wants to change her name to something more American sounding. Add in a bad case of stage fright, keeping her from singing in the upcoming school concert, and the worst boy in school stuck in their social studies group, and Amina wishes she were back in elementary school. At home, things are changing too. Her oldest brother is too cool for her now, and her parents are distracted by the upcoming arrival of her uncle from Pakistan. Her uncle is a very devout Muslim, and Amina worries that she might disappoint him, and her parents by extension. So Amina escapes into her music, singing and playing the piano, but her uncle disapproves of that. He feels both siblings should be focused on learning the Quran, and their father has now even signed them up for a recitation contest at their mosque. Amina feels lost and dreads the upcoming contest. But when a hateful tragedy occurs, she realizes that despite lots of changes, she is very much still connected to her family, her friends, and in fact to her entire community. Will it be enough for her to truly find her voice? The Magic Misfits. Magic Misfits, there we go. This very picky microphone. Carter Locke is on the run. After losing his parents, Carter has been raised by his uncle, a street magician and
thief. After years of abuse and being an unwilling accomplice, Carter betrays his uncle and runs, narrowly escaping by jumping aboard a moving train headed anywhere but here. When the train eventually stops, Carter realizes he has jumped a circus train, currently entertaining the citizens of Mineral Wells. Carter is dazzled by the lights and sounds, but quickly spots the seedy underbelly of BB Bosso's carnival, fake wonders, rigged games, and even more thieving than his uncle. But then, Carter meets a magician. Unlike his uncle, Mr. Vernon seems honest and kind, and eventually introduces him to his daughter and her equally magically inclined friends. Carter isn't sure they'll accept him for who he really is, even though each one of them is a misfit in their own way. But when the group uncovers a plot to swindle the entire town, steal a precious gem, and pin it all on Mr. Vernon, they'll have to trust each other and work together to unveil the true intentions of Bosso's big finale. Wedgie and Gizmo. Wedgie is thrilled to welcome Elliot and his dad into the family. He already had a brother and a sister and a mom, and now he has another brother and a dad. Wedgie is a very enthusiastic corgi, and he bravely defends the family from stick-stealing neighbor dogs and other threats using his flashy red cape. He is Super Wedgie. Super Wedgie loves his new family members, particularly that furry potato Jasmine keeps carrying around. The furry potato smells fantastic. Everything is awesome. Gizmo is not thrilled. Gizmo is an evil genius. Using his immense brain power, a network of winged flunkies, and his faithful servant Elliot, Gizmo will soon rule the world. No, Gizmo is not a human. Gizmo is, in fact, a guinea pig. A term he hates, by the way. He is neither from Guinea nor a pig. He is of the proud family Cavaday, thank you very much. And when he is finally ruler of the world, he shall make sure the humans pay for these indignities. Being called a pig, being temporarily housed in a pink Barbie playhouse, and being occasionally squeezed into a tutu. You see, Gizmo's evil plans have been put on hold while his servant Elliot reluctantly moves in with his new family. So now there are two more children, a mom, and a grandmother who watches Peruvian TV shows about eating guinea pigs. Can Gizmo evade the elderly one's casserole dish? Can he defeat the dog that keeps licking and sniffing him? Can his servant Elliot find a true home with his new family? Does Super Wedgie's cape really give him superpowers? Find out in Wedgie and Gizmo.
Well, okay. Anyways, The Explorer by Catherine Rundell. In the 1920s, the Amazon jungle was still a wild, mysterious place. And explorers searching for golden cities were hailed as heroes, and their adventures inspired awe. When in the very first chapter, a plane crashes in that jungle, 4 children, each with distinct and often conflicting personalities, are thrust together for survival. There's Fred, a British boy with a fondness for reading about explorers. And there's Lila and her 5-year-old brother Max, children of scientists, one of who grew up in the jungle. And then there's Con, a hardened girl with secrets. Danger lurks at every turn. Caiman, piranhas, bees, lack of food, just to name a few. And the children are forced to get along and work together. Things take a mysterious turn as they discover evidence of human presence in the jungle. What they eventually find will have the power to either save them or kill them. Yes, it's gross and it's real. There's burns and snot and mud-covered faces and tears and nightmares. But you won't stop turning the pages. It's a good one. I have to say, she's one of my very favorite authors. I feel some of her books may not be as accessible as others to a wide variety of kids. This is a good one, very accessible. In Darkling Wood by Emma Carroll, Alice is thrilled, excited, and terribly scared when the London hospital calls to say that they've got a heart for her little brother. But she's also upset to find out that when Theo goes into surgery, she has to stay with Nell, a grandmother that she doesn't know, in Nell's cottage in the remote English countryside. Harsh and cold to Alice and estranged from her own son, Alice's father, Nell is determined to cut down the mysterious wood around her home. When Alice meets a strange girl who tells her that Darkling Wood is full of fairies, she doesn't believe it. But are the fairies really warning Alice, as the elusive girl claims, threatening revenge if Nell cuts down the woods? And whose story is being told in the letters interspersed throughout Alice's story? Letters from a girl to her brother off fighting at the end of World War I. Will Theo recover from his surgery? And can Alice learn her family's secrets and help them all heal in time? Is there magic in Darkling Wood? Oh, my favorites. Animal fantasy, obviously. Okay. Podkin One Ear, The Legend Begins by Kieran Larwood. On a dark, snowy night, many hundreds of moons since humans walked the land, a cloaked figure trudges down from the hills and into the forest. His destination? Thornwood Warren, one of the many rabbit villages ruled by chieftains and their families. For he is a bard, a teller of tales, and will be welcome this winter solstice eve. In that cozy, firelit burrow, he spins a tale of a time when the evil Gorm, rabbits clad in iron armor with metal piercing through their skin, brought terror to the realm, and of the young Podkin, a spoiled, lazy son of a chieftain, whose life changes when the Gorm arrive. Heroes and villains, good versus evil, a journey full of adventures and traveling companions, and a great twist at the end that promises more to come. It's all there. Too young for Lord of the Rings? This would be a great choice. That's it.
Unplanned. Thank you all so much for being here this afternoon and for listening to our book talks. And just as a quick note, they do, the bookseller carried a few each of the 20 titles for the Great Stone Face, so if you'd like to purchase them from a local seller, I encourage you to do so. Is that all you need? Thank you.